Hello, and welcome to this webinar by the Global Farmer Network. Today's session is focused on regenerative agriculture and livestock integration. I'm Ellie Sukup, and before we get started, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm a Global Farmer Network staff member based in Washington, D.C., and I also want to tell you about the Global Farmer Network itself. Established in 2000 by farmers, our focus is to connect, empower, and mobilize farmers worldwide. Our mission is to amplify the farmer's voice in promoting trade, technology, sustainable farming, economic growth, and food security. We believe in the power of knowledge transfer, which is why we created this webinar series and offer multiple approaches that focus on action, collaboration, and results that showcase agriculture as part of the solution to the main challenges facing humanity. This year, we are celebrating our 25th anniversary, but we are looking forward to the future too, which is why today's topic is so relevant. Thank you for joining us. Today's speakers are Judith DeVore, a regenerative dairy farmer from the Netherlands, and Dave Okech, a regenerative fish farmer from Kenya in the western part of Kenya. Before I hand it over to our speakers, I wanted to give my own brief presentation about why we are here today. So, regenerative agriculture, why are we at the GFN talking about this? Essentially, it was felt amongst us as a group, amongst our farmers, that the definition and the conversation around regenerative agriculture tends to be driven not by farmers themselves, but by governments and their policies. It could be the private sector and their marketing and market practices. And this puts farmers in a reactive position as those policies and markets change. And so the Global Farmer Network, we brought together 8 operationally diverse farmers from 8 different countries. We brought them into one space in the Eastern US for 3 days to talk about what does regenerative agriculture look like to you? What does it mean to you? And how do you practice it? And so today we are going to hear from 2 of those 8 farmers, Dave and Judith. At the end of the 3 days, they created this declaration. It's not a definition, rather it is a set of shared principles that our farmers believe are what guide them and what are important to promoting regenerative agriculture and practicing regenerative agriculture across the world, no matter what type of operation you run. And so with that, we ask you to join us as well, and we are collecting signatures on the change.org platform. So you'll be hearing from 2 of our farmers today as they talk more about their farms, their work, and why the declaration is so important to them and to their operations. And we really hope that you join our movement and join us in promoting regenerative agriculture around the world. So with that, I would like to invite our first speaker, and Judith. I'll give her a moment to come on the stage. But Judith, we are looking forward to hearing about you, your experience, and your farm. So thank you and welcome. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ellie. And everybody, good afternoon from the Netherlands. I will see if I get my slides there. Yes, thank you. So I am a dairy farmer from the Netherlands, and I'm going to share with you my thoughts and insights from being a regenerative farmer with livestock, and in my case, dairy farming. So what I want to share a little bit about the history, about the farm that we're having today. And then I'm going to share a lot of the practical things that we're actually doing at the farm to be regenerative. And I live in the Netherlands, and I live in the central area of the Netherlands next to a very small river. Maybe you can see it on the screen on the right. And this is an area where people have been farming for over 1,000 years. And from my family, we are the fifth generation that having the farm and operating in dairy at the same place. So for me, that feels really special to be part of the history. And that is also why I feel regenerative agriculture and regenerative farming is really important, because this is not just about me, about us farming today, but also feeling the inheritance that we get from our own family, but also from all the generations that came for us and worked so hard on the land. Well, as you can see, things have been changed in the last couple of decades. The photo in black and white, that is actually a grandfather, the young boy sitting next to his father, and they were milking cows in the land with hands, not using any machinery. And today everything has been really modernized. We're having a milking parlor. We use a lot of robotics in the barn. Our cows go outside. We use and collect a lot of data to see how they're actually doing. Things have changed. We have access to technology right now, but the main principles in how we see the farm, how we feel the land, and what for us is really important, and our internal motivation hasn't changed at all. That is exactly the same as when all the former generations were farming. So as a dairy farmer, you can be regenerative. And one of the things that for us is really important is, for example, animal welfare, but also the quality of the soil, because the soil is our base. But also what is happening when it comes to livestock, and maybe in your country as well, but at least in the Netherlands and also in other countries in Europe, there is discussions about greenhouse gas emissions. So that's why we are having a holistic grazing system at the farm. Holistic grazing system does mean that every day the cows go outside, at least in for us when it's spring, summer, and autumn, not in the winter time. But when they're outside every day, they get a new fresh piece of grassland. So that means that every day we need to remove the cows to a different place. Um, with this holistic grazing system, the soil where they were yesterday gets the rest and has the ability to grow back, but also for the grass and all the herbs and clovers that we're having, it has more possibilities to grow more in balance. Otherwise, the cows would only eat the part that they like. For example, if you have them in the field, the same field, for 4 days, you will see that they will only eat what they actually do prefer, and other parts of the grassland they won't eat. So that's why we need them to move around every day to a fresh new piece of land. So for the soil, that's really important, but also for the welfare of the cows, because they can go outside, graze outside. You can see the picture. There's fresh grass, herbs, fresh water they can drink. But also, if they're outside, it also is important for the reduction of ammonia emissions, which is a greenhouse gas, because the manure and the urine of the cow gets separated. So that's why we are using a holistic grazing system at the farm. Um, we are working the land as farmers, and also as a dairy farmer, because we have mainly grassland at the farm, but sometimes we still do need work the land. And if you look at the picture on the left, you will see also an old family picture where they were using horses. This is an actual plow, a really old one that were used combined with the two horses, and they were plowing the land. Nowadays, we don't do plowing anymore, very little or zero or no tillage, if possible. And you can see in the picture on the right, we're not using horses anymore, but tractors. But this is only making sure that the topsoil is being touched, but not very difficult and deep plowing, because that's not really good for the soil. And only in case it's really necessary, we do this very little tillage of the soil to make it suitable for new cross seeding, for example. So from different ways of working the soil and working the land, we improved it by not only technology, but also the knowledge that we gained by what is important for the land, and how do we make sure that the land, like I said, the soil, the land is our basis. How do we assure that it's gonna have the best condition as it has? Um, in many other countries in the world, erosion is a problem, and that's the main driver, that they're not plowing, or even to no-till, no tillage. That's not really an issue where I'm living in the Netherlands, or not at all in the Netherlands. But for us, it is also the reduction of greenhouse gases, CO2 emissions, are really low if you don't plow, but only work the top layer of the land. So the driver why we are doing it is maybe different, but the outcome is pretty much the same as in other countries. So I shared a little bit about the soil and why the soil is our base, because we believe that a good and healthy soil um, is making sure that my cows are healthy, but also that they are producing then healthy food. And healthy food is really good for us as humans, because we are, of course, consuming all the, in my case, the dairy products that my cows are making from the milk, or what is being made of the milk. So the soil is our base for healthy soil, healthy cows, and healthy food. In order to keep the soil healthy, and also to improve the biodiversity in the land, we are having many herbs and clover. If you look from a large distance to the farm, or maybe you've seen it in the previous picture, you might think that it's only raygrass, but it's not. It's actually a mixture of many herbs and clover. So we are doing this to improve the root system, but also for attracting all kind of insects actually to the flowers in the field. And the insect is really important for protected endangered bird species who are breeding actually in the grass. And the clover is really important as well, because it collects nitrogen from the air. And you might have heard that nitrogen is a little bit of a discussion point in the Netherlands, at least. Um, so how do we actually see what the situation of the soil is? Is the soil healthy? So we do a lot of soil testing. It means that we are taking it to the lab to see what the situation of the soil is. But also, if you are actually walking in the land and dig a little bit of a hole, not too deep, of course, but if you make a hole, then you can see how the root system is look like. But also, are there any worms, and what kind of worms are there in the soil? Because that also makes a difference. So we test the soil, and we have a lot of different parts of soil. Mainly it's peat soil where I'm living, and partly clay on top of the peat soil. So that's also making a difference. We gained a lot of knowledge from our parents, grandparents. What is the situation with our soil? How do we um, tested, and what does it actually say, these kind of tests. And all this old knowledge that is also what we're using today when it comes to the soil, and making sure that our soil is in good condition. If we're having corn at the land, we use it corn or maize for feed. It is only there for 1 year. That means that the corn has to rotate. If we're having it this year, next year I have to say we're not gonna seed any corn. That means that it's 100% grasslands. But if we're having corn, then it's a 1 year rotation plan. But it's not only corn. It is surrounded still with trees, and there is cover crops planted when the corn is being harvested. Where I'm living, it's now autumn. So in October normally is the month that all the corn is being harvested. And we have to seed, and we want to seed cover crops. And cover crops are really important because it's keeping the soil together, but it's also making sure that fertilizers aren't floating away in the water, because we also want to protect the water and keep the soil healthy. We do that with the grass and the cover crops in the rotation system. Um, we started a couple of years ago as a regenerative farming system, and we didn't knew actually that we were doing it many years, but it is it we thought it was a new name, and we wanted to learn a lot from other farmers, because we as farmers are on our own. But how can we learn from other farmers? What are their experiences? So that's why we joined a study group with other regenerative farmers. And that means that being together, we are actually in the land. And you can see it on the left, where we are watching the soil, what is the health of the soil, and we also do some soil testing. On the right, you see a picture of very two different kind of soil samples that we took when we were at my farm. And you can see in both samples that the soil is happily alive. So this is a proof of living soil. And it's really interesting to see what's happening with us, but also what's happening with other farmers, and what are their experiences, and what can we learn from each other when it comes to regenerative farming, and especially when it comes to the soil. We Besides the really old knowledge that we're using, and the techniques that we're having, our own ideas when it comes to regenerative farming, we see that there's also a lot of new innovations coming to the market, but also new opportunities when it comes to regenerative farming. On the left, you see a picture that is a spot sprayer. Maybe you've heard of it and maybe not, but a spot sprayer is actually a machine that works with laser and that can detect weed. And that means that it will only spray on the weed itself and not on the other crops that doesn't need it. And with this spot spraying method, you're able to reduce the amount of crop protection mean that you're using. And this is also having a more positive impact on your surroundings. That is, for example, a new innovation that is being used at many of the farms here. And if I do need to spray, it's very little, then we use a spot sprayer as well. And actually, as a farmer in the Netherlands, our government is also supporting us when it comes to using these kind of new innovations. Another picture on the right is about a new opportunity. So as a dairy farmer, our milk is being processed by the largest co-op in the Netherlands. It's called Friesland Campina. And they are working together in a national program. It's called Regen NL, with many other companies and agricultural cooperations, together with the Lidl supermarket, for a new pilot where farmers are actually being rewarded directly for all the efforts that they're taking in all the regenerative practices that they're having. And I think that is a real important thing as well, because regenerative farming is really important as a part of being sustainable. But some of the practices that we're doing are actually more expensive. And then it's really good that the market is also ready for it and sees this as an important movement and giving actually support. So these are really, really small letters. I do understand that you cannot read it, but the news with the supermarket and my own dairy co-op says that, and our national program says that 100 farmers from the Netherlands are working together in this pilot program, and we are part of it. And as you can see, there is a picture of a liter of milk. And if you look really closely, you can see on the picture in the left back that there is actually a clover in bloom visible at the package. And with that, you can see that this is milk with extra effort when it comes to regenerative practices. So this is a really important first step, I think, as well, that we as regenerative farmers are being supported, but also financially rewarded for all the efforts that we're taking as farmers. So I'm going to finish up with my last slides because I want to share a little bit with you about why am I doing this, or why are we doing this? Because sometimes regenerative agriculture can have an effect on your production, but we want to create positive impact, create positive movement towards the future. And that's what exactly what I'm writing here, is that my motivation is the next generations. What I said earlier, regenerative agriculture isn't just something for us for today, but it's for the future. And in my case, making sure that there will be over 1,000 years again, people able to farm. And with that in mind, we have to be a true steward when it comes to taking care of the land, taking care of our environment, and taking care of our communities, making sure that the future generations are also having a place to live that is good, and also having a place to farm that is sustainable. So that's why I'm doing this at the farm. And as a livestock farmer, it is possible to be regenerative at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judith. I always love hearing about you and your farm. And again, as you highlight, it's the integration. You know, it's not just dairy. It's the clover, the no-till, the cover crops, the working with markets. It's really impressive. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Our next speaker is Dave O'Ketch, and Dave is from the Lake Victoria region, so Eastern Africa, but the western part of Kenya. And Dave, we're really excited. I've been watching the chat, and there are several people who are already talking about aquaculture. No pressure. So Dave, take it away. We can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Thank you very much, Ellie, and good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Dave O'Ketch. I am a fish farmer and an entrepreneur in the aquaculture value chain, where we cover the entire ecosystem. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but aquaculture is the fastest growing agricultural value chain in Africa. And by its design, aquaculture sits in a unique position where it can create numerous job opportunities. And one of the reasons why aquaculture is the fastest growing is because for the longest period of time, African lakes and rivers, have been used to be fished. And population around Africa is growing at a very fast rate. The level of stress that has been put on the wild caught fish has continued to increase. And that has made depletion of fish stock in our lakes and rivers. And so aquaculture is coming in to breathe life back into our lakes and rivers. And for that, and for the continuous generation that is coming ahead, aquaculture must be regenerative um, by its design. And the beauty about why aquaculture has this unique opportunity to attain a life of regenerative system is because it is new, and it doesn't have to make the mistakes other livestock and horticulture um, livestock and horticulture has done. It sits in a unique position where it can learn, and in this case, and learn a lot from old agricultural system and build new frontiers in which it focuses on being regenerative. And what with aquaculture being the fastest growing agricultural value chain in Africa, what do we mean by a regenerative aquaculture? It has two phases. It has phase one, because the fact that it is the fastest growing, it means more aquaculture. But the second phase of it is the most critical part of it, which means better aquaculture. And by saying better aquaculture, we mean an aquaculture that is conscious of the ecosystem around which it operates. And so by that default, it encompasses the what you call socioeconomic activities within the large water bodies and outside the large water bodies. When we look at regenerative aquaculture system, um, we must look at health of marine and freshwater fish and health of the land upstream around which the tributary rivers, the agricultural activities take place and drain into the lakes. So, as farmers who are actively using waters in Lake Victoria, we must be able to look at what is it that we can do to one, maintain and preserve fresh waters. Number two, ensure the economic activities of the community around the lake region is supported. Three, ensure socially we are building an inclusive system that has benefits that go past the fish that is being produced. And so, what we do as Aquarage is to basically um, build an ecosystem around the aquaculture value chain that brings together the fish farmers, the feed manufacturers, the governments. In Kenya, we have both county governments and local governments, so both levels of government. We also bring together the financials, the financial sector, and we also bring together the input suppliers. Um, why do we emphasize on an ecosystem approach is because regenerative aquaculture needs to be a system that is resilient. And for us to build a system that is resilient, we have to encompass all the stakeholders on board. Resilience here both has what we call vertical and horizontal integration. How do we make sure the consumers, the financial sector providers, and all these people are vertically integrated on the platform? How do we also make sure the land users, the farmers themselves, and the entire water bodies is integrated so that we can all tackle some of the complex challenges that have made that needs to be done in order for aquaculture to move to its next level. A regenerative aquaculture is envisioned where it is able to contribute towards sustainable and secure food production. And what we try to achieve by this is to build what we call structural designs that can transition our farmers from peasant production systems to profitable production systems. Sustainability of a regenerative aquaculture lies a lot on the profitability of the actors. And profitability of the actors here is the key actor here is the farmer utilizing the lake or the river to produce fish. And so you must start by addressing some of the structural challenges that can move this farmer from peasant level of production to profitable level of production. So that some of the good aquaculture practices that we want to enable the farmer to adopt can be achieved through increased access to finance, increased access to the high quality inputs, increased access to technical support, and direct market linkage. So creating resilient ecosystems and sustainable ecosystem is one of the bottom line of the farmers. I want to give an example. Most farmers in Africa and in Kenya are used to using sinking marsh feed, which basically contributes towards eutrophication of Lake Victoria. And what we are trying to achieve as a farmer and as an organization is we are giving farmers access to high quality extruded floating pelleted feed that have better feed conversion ratio, that floats in the water, and that enables the fish to grow faster. Through this, we are cutting off 5 months of a farmer's production from 13 months to 8 months. And using that, you reduce feed wasted, you reduce excessive feed that goes into the lake and contributes towards eutrophication. So what we have seen is that by taking some of these actions, we have managed to build farmers resilience to some of the climate change. You may have heard of fish kills that have happened in Lake Victoria, and the reason why that fish kill has happened is purely because of a lake that is choked by excess pollution, both within the activities and upstream, and it goes through what is called upwelling. Climate change is here with us, and how do we adapt to the climate change that is a reality? How do we also ensure farmers practice regenerative systems that can help them mitigate the negative impact of climate change? What we have done is, just to give an example, we've moved farmers from this kind of metallic cage production system to this kind of HDP pipe system. What these two production systems provides are two different things. One, the round circular one gives the farmers high stocking density and allows the farmers to locate the fish production system in the right side of the lake, meaning open parts of the lake that have larger waves and can allow water with high waves to move in and out, thereby leading to faster growth of fish because of more oxygen. And two, safeguards the farmers against fish kill, which happens as a result of um, climate change that causes upwelling. We have enabled local communities access these HDP piped cages, and they're able to see the benefits that comes to them. And through that, our instruments enables farmers to join in production, such as women that are typically left on the periphery to trade on fish are now able to be part of an ecosystem that produces fish. And that continuous that continuous training, that continuous access of the right production equipment contribute towards what is called regenerative aquaculture. And just like I said, regenerative aquaculture has a lot to do with better aquaculture and not just more aquaculture. Even though we are going to have more aquaculture coming into Africa because it's the fastest growing agricultural value chain, how do we make it better so that the generations to come ahead can continue enjoying the fruits that it comes in terms of continuous supply of protein to the community. So, like I mentioned before, our platform basically is Africa's first fish farming platform, and I developed this platform as a result of my fish farming experience. And through that, we've been able to incorporate farmers, consumers, fish traders, input suppliers, financial institutions, and governments to have what we call a safe space that they can transact businesses. And that is what when we talk about creating enabling environments that allow regenerative aquaculture to thrive, you can only create that when there's an instrument or a medium through which the key ecosystem players that contribute towards a regenerative system are able to interact. We have what is called aquafeda. Feda means money in Swahili in Kenya. So you might translate it to aqua money. But the aquafeda is the first non-collateralized loan that farmers access as working capital for their inputs. And through this, we get to deliver the high quality extruded floating pelleted feed, which is often out of reach from the farmers, and they're able to use that and make aquaculture a sustainable business case. I think that marks the end of my slide presentation. But what I can say as I close on this is aquaculture once again sits in a unique position in the agricultural value chains where it can adapt the good aquaculture practices to make it better and in that sense achieve the three pillars that I would say are key towards a regenerative agricultural system. One being high level of inclusivity, sustainability, and resilience. Again, that can be achieved through aquaculture production system that is encompassing all the value chain actors together. That marks the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to take questions after this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dave. I always learn something new and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. Both of you have done such a wonderful job, I think, talking about the system and the true integration of your work. You know, today's topic is livestock, but you've both talked about not just livestock, but the system in which it plays a part. So thank you so much. Judith, we have a question from the audience. So I'm going to kick off our conversation with a question directed to you first. And it's kind of specific, but it's a great question because I've never thought of this before. And that is, obviously the Netherlands, you are known for your waterways and damming and your systems to control flow as a country that is technically below sea level. So how do flooding areas near rivers and the coast, how does that affect the soil quality, even with the Dutch flood control system in place?
Yes, excellent question. Thank you so much for that. And we are actually living 3 meters below sea level in the part where I'm living in the center part. So this is really a hot topic, water. And maybe some of you are maybe a little bit envious, but there's plenty of water where I'm living. 15% actually is water in what I'm having. So water is really, really important to us. The quality of the water, but also what's giving it to the land. So that's an excellent question. And we have really, really advanced a flood control system. So that means that in very, very little cases, there's actually flooding in the land. Sometimes that's happening when, for example, in the Alps, the mountain area is having really, really tough winter season, or when it's really, really hard rain, but it almost never happens. What is maybe a little bit more of a problem is all the medicine residue that's in the water, or the drug that's in the water, that's having an effect on the quality of the land. For example, maybe you know a little bit about the Netherlands, but here a lot of the drug is that you can use is legal. There's legal drugs that you can take here, but also many people taking a lot of medicine, and many of these residues will end up in the water, and that will have an effect even more than flooding on the land. So this is not just us working on that, because there's very little we can do to prevent all these residues ending up in the water, or chemicals from other countries that will go with all the rivers and end up at our soil. But it's a joint responsibility, I would say, from all the national governments, but also from the water authorities, to making sure that the water is being purified again. We have a very many purifying water systems and houses in the land that are making sure that the water will be cleaned. So the effect on the land will be as little as possible. Because if there is many things in the water that doesn't belong here, then it will end up on the land. Yes, but it's very, very rare that this will happen because of the advanced system that we're having.
Interesting. Well, and I also like how you're talking about water because obviously, Dave, that's really important to what you were saying, and thinking about upstream and downstream and that whole process as well. So I know at times it feels worlds apart, the Netherlands and Kenya, but really you're dealing with very similar issues. And I think that that's really what's powerful about being in agriculture, is that it's such a connector, and that no matter what type of farming or where you are in the world, a lot of the issues you face are still the same.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you for talking about that. Dave, I want to come back to your presentation, and again, and you did touch on this in your presentation, but I really want to double down on it, which is, I think when we hear the words regenerative agriculture, we think a lot about soil, very important, and we hear livestock integration and that system and all of that, but we don't always consider fish. And so what do you bring such a unique perspective, and so what do you say to someone where, if you were to introduce yourself and say, well, I'm a regenerative fish farmer, and they're like, well, how does that work? So to you, how does aquaculture fit into regenerative practices in a kind of bite-sized, easy to understand, something when you're in an elevator and someone asks you that question. What do you say to them?
Yeah, often the question is, yeah, good question actually. So you have aquaculture and you have fisheries. So fisheries here will refer to the what you call indigenous fish species that have existed either in the marine or in freshwater bodies, and typically fishermen go and fish them out and sell them to the consumers. Um, but that kind of activity is slowly dying off, and in some areas it's completely gone. Now, aquaculture is coming in as the practice of culturing fish in what you call a safe space sort of thing, but within the ecosystem where the indigenous fish have operated in, and with the ultimate goal of still feeding the target population. For aquaculture to be regenerative, it must not it must contribute towards rebuilding the ecosystem upon which it operates, and in that case gives a chance to indigenous fish to grow. And for that, because of the level of investment it does have, it requires a little bit of sensitization to the actors within the value chain, um, so that it becomes what we call sustainable, inclusive, and more resilient. And when I say aquaculture as a regenerative agricultural system contributing towards rebuilding the ecosystem of the fisheries sector, is that conservation of the breeding sites of the indigenous fish needs to be upheld, so that aquaculture activities do not necessarily kill the already dying fishery sector, but rather provides a safe haven upon which the wild fish can grow and also produce the eggs and get more families out there. So, but that is one part when you look at impact of a regenerative aquaculture system on water bodies. There is the other part that activities that happen around aquaculture systems that can make or break it. And this includes agricultural activities that happen on the lands that surface water finally drain. So if you look at what Judith is talking about, it's a very important part of making aquaculture regenerative. Why? Because reducing the draining of fertilizers and chemicals and all these things that surface runoff water finally end up into lakes and rivers is critical towards ensuring that the fish that we get out of that lake that has been fed on commercial feed is quality and lives and is grown in a safe environment. So a regenerative aquaculture is a mix of both, I will say, land-based agricultural activities and lake-based um, aquaculture system. Those two cannot exist without the other in terms of they should succeed in terms of being regenerative. The less pollution we have on land, the better our aquaculture systems are in the lakes and rivers that we operate in. And this requires sensitization, at all levels, because it's more of a complex system, and rather than a complicated situation. I don't know if I've summarized it well enough for.
No, you summarized it beautifully. I'm currently thinking how both of you, in addition to your farming activities, should both be teachers, because I learned something about the difference between fisheries and aquaculture, which is really interesting. And again, that symbiotic relationship between the land and the water and what that means. So you summarized it beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, I'm going to stick with you because I have another question that came from the audience. And so the question is the fact that the ability to access non-collateral credit, would be really interesting to hear more about. So can you share more about how your system was developed and how it works from a financing perspective?
Yeah, great. I started farming fish in 2014, and I built a 200 metric ton per annum fish farm by the year 2019. But despite that, okay, so that a 200 metric ton per annum considered kind of a profitable fish farm in Kenya and a bit of a higher scale. But despite that, I could not still access, loans from commercial banks in Kenya because the way our financial system is designed, they haven't captured aquaculture as something that can be financed. The bank managers can visit you, but it tells you, I can't see the fish. So how do I finance something I can't see? And what happens if the fish all of a sudden escapes from the net? Who takes care of that? So I then went out to start looking at how we can provide um, non-collateralized loans to the other thousands of farmers that we work with. I chair the Cage Fish Farmers Association of Kenya, and one of the things that our farmers were the association is, Dave, where do we get access to loans that we can use for as working capital for us? And so initially, I started building this product by providing inputs on credit. So not actually the actual cash, but providing the inputs on credit and buying back the fish as a form of repayment, the loan amount. So, so that is how the product was built over a period of time. But as I was building this flexible payment solution to farmers by providing fish buyback system out of the input that we provided, my receivables grew so big, and I had to go out there and look at.
I'll come back.
Sorry,
No,
my
it's
my
all right. You cut out just for a second there. So you said it because you had so many receivables, you had to go out, and then that's where you were cut off.
yeah, I had to go out and fundraise
Mm.
amount of money that I then could support more farmers with. And over a period of time, I went back to the commercial bank with data and proved to them that, guys, we can actually farmers, they can pay their loan, and there's a business case and opportunity for us to succeed here. That's how we managed to build Aquafeather, and to date we are the ones evaluating the farmers, providing the inputs, not the cash, but the inputs, that is feeds and fingerlings, and channeling this through the bank, and off taking that fish by providing immediate market access. And that way, we've been able to graduate farmers from peasant production livelihood to really profitable production system.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah, this is what I was saying is critical towards a regenerative. If a farmer makes money, he will practice regenerative aquaculture. If he doesn't make money, it's difficult to enforce anything regenerative in the mind of the farmer. So we need to address the bottlenecks and get the farmer to that money-making side, and we can all have an ecosystem that we all operate in.
That is fantastic. And Judith, you alluded to that as well at the end with the carton of milk and talking about those financial incentives and kind of the marketing behind, like, it's worth the investment because you see the return on it. And
Exactly.
those are excellent points that you've both brought up. Judith, I want to ask about, this is something that you just hear kind of in the news, or maybe like some friends will be talking, and it's more like just common conversation. But I feel that there is a narrative that I've heard over and over about, as we are concerned about climate change and the climate crisis, and cows tend to come up, livestock comes up, and this idea of, oh, you're a livestock producer, that you're hurting the environment. And here you are saying, no, I'm a regenerative farmer. So can you speak to that, to that person that says, who's skeptical, essentially? What do you say to them when they find out that you are a dairy farmer and regenerative?
Yeah. So that happens many times, I have to say. And many of those times, those people with that opinion never ever spoken to a farmer, not a dairy farmer in my case. And so what I am saying is that actually that I am a regenerative farming, taking care of the future, making sure that our food system is resilient, but also making sure that our future is sustainable, and livestock plays an important role in the complete circle, because more and more people on the planet living or facing hunger, for example, and we all need protein. But also to making sure that crops will grow on the land, they need fertilizer. And I've got, or not only me, but all my colleagues have natural fertilizers. That is really important. And many times people don't oversee the role of livestock in the complete food system that we're having. And I'm also explaining that what we do at the farm with these regenerative practices is that we're improving positive impacts. But if there are negative impacts, and some of them are, we're talking about greenhouse gas emissions, for example, that we do everything that we can to reduce them. I'm talking about ammonia, I'm talking about methane emissions. So we took a lot of ownership, responsibility, and stewardship, actually, when it comes to what we do as farming. Um, and I must say that after explaining and having a conversation about how I farm, why, for example, this is important for our food system, for sustainable future, then they understand more better. Because often there was once a politician at my farm, and she is vegan, and she said to me, "Well, we don't need any livestock, and the future is vegan." But she never thought of how the crops will grow if there is no manure, and if artificial fertilizers being made, it's not really that good for the environment as well. So you better use what nature is giving us in a very responsible way. And I do feel the pressure to produce in a very good way.
Amazing. Thank you. That is such a great response and argument. And I really appreciate that perspective. And knowing the fact that, yeah, I think you spoke to sometimes even leaders within your own country are some of the biggest skeptics. And so you addressed that
Yes.
beautifully. Thank you. Thank you so much to both of you. I've learned so much, and you are wonderful, wonderful advocates for regenerative agriculture, for agriculture within your own communities. So thank you so much for everything that you do and for sharing your experiences with us. It really, really means a lot. To the audience now, I want to encourage you to please, follow, follow in Judith and Dave's footsteps. Please sign the declaration, and make sure that your voice is heard as well about why this is so important. Also, I am really sad to say that this is the last webinar in our regenerative agriculture series. We have officially heard from all of our 8 farmers now. And so we hope that you enjoyed today's discussion, but we also encourage you to go back and listen to our past webinars because they're really, really important topics and they're really illuminating. And they get into the nitty-gritty of that experience of this is what regenerative agriculture looks like and what it means to me and to our future. So thank you to all of you for joining us. And thank you most of all to our wonderful, wonderful farmers. And I would be remiss if I did not end on this note. Happy World Soil Day next week, which is really exciting. And so in case you needed another reason to sign that declaration, World Soil Day is the perfect excuse. Judith, Dave, thank you so much. To our audience, thank you so much. Have a wonderful
Thank you very much. Appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.